Welcome all. We're so glad to have all of you here. Thank you for coming to our gathering today. And we want to say thank you to Kat and Cantor for providing this lovely music. They're teachers. They teach ukulele classes here at the library, and we're really grateful for all they do here. And we're thankful to our friends of the Waccamaw Library, FAL, for sponsoring this program and all our programs here at the Waccamaw Library. They do a wonderful job supporting us, and they are also supporting us today in a special way. They're selling books by our award-winning poet, Tim Conroy. So please get a souvenir today to remember this always by. Just go by afterward, right across this short hallway here, and buy one of Tim's two wonderful books of poetry right at the Friends Center. They're happy to sell a book to you and take a piece of this wonderful gathering with you. And of course, we have Tim here with us, our friend, award-winning poet, brother to Pat Conroy. But he himself is also a great literary treasure for South Carolina. Even though he's removed down to Florida, we love to have him back, and we'll keep having him back. He's been here at the library here. I think this is his 5th time, so he's a repeat offender, but we love him. And he's going to talk today and share with us about the deep connections between poetry and spirituality, and there's no one better to do that. So, and he's going to have us participate in that. So he'll illustrate that for us. We're thankful to have you all here to share with us, and we're grateful to have Tim Conroy. So please welcome Tim.
I'd like to thank the Waccamaw Library and the Friends of the Waccamaw Library, and Daniel Turner, my friend and poet, for having me today. I want to express my great gratitude to the poetry readers today. Thank you for your courage to answer my request. And I appreciate Tim Burke and Rosemary and Donnie and Mike Hodges and Mary Ruth Ragland and my wife Terry for putting up with this. And Daniel Cross Turner will be also reading. I begin with prayer. Dear eternal poet, may I find my words today, laugh at my mistakes, and stay in the moment without anxiety or stress, so I can hear these poems and be struck by our humanity. Postscript. The poet of our creation, I'd appreciate it if you would make me funny and smart. Did I just hear Mary Ruth mumble, Tim believes in miracles? Today we will share a few poems and experience the mystical power of poetry. But first, please join me in a responsive reading of the Gathering Litany for Poetry. I will read the first line, and please follow with the response. This is a thin place where the present and the past are woven with the future, and we belong to this cosmic moment of creation.
This is a thin place where imagination is renewed, where boundaries are expanding, and where mysterious leaps of imagination occur.
This is a thin place where words inspire, where metaphors enthrall, and where each of us contributes vital verses to the poem of the universe.
This is a thin place where art and spirituality merge, where we all to make ourselves
Y'all are good. Let's take a moment to center and go deeper. Close your eyes and empty your thoughts. Breathe deeply and commune with the cosmic poet and enter in an intentional moment to feel the pulse of the world. Breathe in this simple moment. Breathe out its shared rhythm. Breathe in this simple moment. Breathe out its shared rhythm. Breathe in this simple moment. Breathe out its shared rhythm. A reading adapted from John O'Donohue's To Bless the Space Between Us. I arise today in the name of poetry, in the name of rhythm between the soul and the earth, space of belonging. I arise today, blessed by all things, wings of breath, leaf of whisper, miracle of health, intimacy of the ordinary. May I live this day guided by wonder, filled by joy, made courageous with kindness, generous with love, with my heart open to the divine metaphors all around us. Chesterton said, I don't deny that there should be priests to remind men and women they die. It is necessary to have another kind of priest called poets, actually to remind us we are not dead yet. When I read great poetry, I can't help but think about how my concept of the divine loves poetry. For poetry makes us feel. For the poets surely were the ones who first visioned God's many forms and names. Dave Lucas, the poet laureate of Ohio, wrote in his essay, "Poetry is making," as the ancient Greek word poiesis reminds us. If the scale of its creation is smaller, its concerns are nothing less than the cosmos. Today, at the Coffee House Church of Poetry, I say our lives are the elements of a poem of an unknown length. God, the mystery, loves poetry because we perceive the divine as the metaphor within and around us from the beginning to the end of our lives. Our souls surge with mystery when we hear the poetry meant for us. Close your eyes or keep them open, but listen to the words and their rhythm and experience breath and sound and choice, and note the illusions and marvel at the language that enable abstractions to be held like concrete objects. Listen for the poem's line breaks and how the poet keeps the poem flowing downstream with pace. How does the poem open your senses? Why does the poem work? Or why doesn't it work for you? It helps me to think of poetry as different types of music. Poetry can be country, jazz, bluegrass, classical, pop, ukulele, hip-hop, spirituals. It can be narrative, prose, lyric, free verse, metrical, with infinite forms and rhyme schemes. Discover the poems that play the music you love. Some people ask me how one should respond to poetry, and I tell them, sometimes I don't react at all to take it in deeply. Sometimes I clap, stomp, hoist my beer, hide my tears, or find myself laughing. How do you respond to poetry? You respond to poetry with an open heart. Believe me when I say there are poets and poems meant for you to discover. But let me warn you, if you fall in love with poetry, it will transform you. To paraphrase the poet Ross Gay, what he said about poetry at a recent event at Smith College, there's no better way to express our belonging, our entanglement with each other. Our journey begins with what we take for granted, the stuff of creation. Our first poem will be read by Dottie Hodges.
Good morning. Morning. I'm Dottie Hodges, and I'm here to read Ode to Dirt by Sharon Holmes. Dear Dirt, I'm sorry I slighted you. I thought you were only the background for the leading characters, the plants, and animals, and human animals. It's as if I had loved only the stars, and not the sky which gave them space to which to shine. Subtle, various, sensitive, you are the skin of our terrain. You are our democracy. When I understood I had never honored you as a living equal, I was ashamed of myself. As if I had not recognized a character who looked so different from me. But now I can see us all, made of the same basic materials, cousins of that first exploding from nothing in our intricate equation together. Oh, Dirt, help us find ways to serve your life. You have brought us forth and fed us, and who at the end will take us in and rotate with us and wobble and orbit. Thank you.
Isn't the best part of the Bible when the writing turns poetic? I once read that there are 4 types of poems in the Bible. Poems that describe events, didactic poems, teaching poems, poems that urge action, and lyrical poems. We continue with a selection read by my wife, Terry.
An excerpt from the Song of Solomon. My beloved spoke and said unto me, Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of the singing of birds is come. And the voice of the turtle is heard in our land. The fig tree putteth forth her green figs, and the vines with the tender grape give a good smell. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away.
Of course, that's how I wake up Terry every morning. I love the poet who searches to find the one word, the one image that fits and doesn't settle for perfect, but goes beyond perfect to something that shakes you like truth. In this next poem, we hear strong language from Kwame Dawes to express independence and poverty and triumph with the image of a clothesline. A poet must be courageous and authentic and not cower from saying strong words in a temple. Ode to the Clothesline by Kwame Dawes. Not so much the missing of things, but nostalgia of colors, their music, the ordinary revelation of a family's life, caught in the flop and dance, a jig, if you will, of their layers, outer and inner skins, the secret things so close to the body, the taste, the salt and sweet of blood and shit and piss, and then rinsed and scrubbed, leaving beneath the astringent scent of soap, of musky marker of self for strays, to smell or imagine as they walk past the parade of the living on taut lines, propped by poles, with nails for a hook, above the startling green of grass and hedge, the bare-faced concrete steps, the sky, inscrutable as a wall. This is what one carries as a kind of sweetness. The labor of brown hands, elbow deep in suds, the rituals of cleansing, the humility of a darning or afraid crotch, the dignity of cleanliness, the democracy of truth, the way we lived our lives in the open. Tim Burke will read the next incredible poem by William Stafford.
All right. Ask Me by William Stafford. Sometime when the river is ice, ask me mistakes I have made. Ask me whether what I have done is my life. Others have come in their slow way into my thought, and some have tried to help or to hurt. Ask me the difference their strongest love or hate has made. I will listen to what you say. You and I can turn and look at the silent river and wait. We know the current is there, hidden, and there are comings and goings from miles away that hold in stillness exactly before us. What the river says, that is what I say.
How do you explain the currents of life? Who has appeared and disappeared from your eyes? What have you done and haven't done? What have you gleaned from the years? I find Stafford's answer as good as any I managed to conjure. Are we ever far away from the people we lost? Those loved ones that dream of the best for us. The next poem will be read by Rosemary Burke.
Have You Prayed by Lee Young Lee. When the wind turns and asks in my Father's voice, have you prayed? I know three things. One, I'm never finished answering to the dead. Two, A man is 4 winds and 3 fires. And the 4 winds are his father's voice and his mother's voice. Or maybe he's 7 winds and 10 fires. And the fires are seeing, hearing, touching, dreaming, thinking. Or is he the breath of God? When the wind turns traveler and asks, in my Father's voice, have you prayed? I remember 3 things. 1, a father's love is milk and sugar. 2/3 worry, 2/3 grief. And what's left over is trimmed and leavened to make the bread the dead and the living share. And patience, that's to endure the terrible leavening and kneading. And wisdom, that's my Father's face in sleep. When the wind asks, have you prayed? I know it's only me reminding myself. A flower is one station between earth's wish and earth's rapture. And blood was fire, salt, and breath long before it quickened any wand or branch, any limb that woke speaking. It's just me in the gowns of the wind, or my Father through me, asking, have you found your refuge yet? Asking, are you happy? Strange. A troubled father, a happy son, the wind with a voice, and me talking to no one.
Recall the prayers you have said for others and how you pray for yourself. Mike Hodges is our next reader.
Just the title gets you, right? Upstairs, the eulogy, downstairs, the rummage sale by Yoshua November. The beloved Yiddish professor passed away on the same day as the synagogue's rummage sale. And because it could not bear the coffin up the many steps that led to the sanctuary, they left it in the hallway downstairs. And because I was not one of the students, and it didn't matter if I heard the eulogy, they told me to stay downstairs and to watch over the body and recite psalms. And I thought, this is how it is in the life and death of a righteous man. Upstairs in the sanctuary, they speak of you in glowing terms, while down below, your body rests beside old kitchen appliances. And I recited the Psalms as intently as I could over a man I had only met once. And yet, because I knew where he was headed, and you and I were to wed in a few months, I asked that he bring with him a prayer for a good marriage. And this is how it is in the life and death of a righteous man. Strangers pray over the sum of your days, and strangers ask you to haul their heavy hearts, their heavy requests, where you cannot even take your body. Thank you.
Isn't faith sometimes like how we stand with hat in our hand in the busy and awkward hallways, sending messages for health or a happy marriage, or intercessions for ourselves and help for our children? The next selection will be read by Mary Ruth Ragland.
A Violin at Dusk by Lizette Woodworth Reese. Stumble to silence, all you uneasy things that pack the day with bluster and with fret. For here is music at each window set. Here is a cup which drips with all of the springs that ever bud a cowslip flower. A roof to shelter till the urgent of the argent weathers break. A candle with enough of light to make my courage bright against each dark reproof. A hand's width of gold unraveled out the rosy sky. The little moon appears as they were splashed upon the palely red, vast, blurred. The village poplars lift their heads. I think of young lost things, of lilacs, tears, and I think of an old neighbor, long since dead.
I can't help but think of how we take for granted each day, each hour, and how poems like this remind us to absorb the daily music and beauty of the world despite anxiety and fears. Though there are hardships and loss, the poem reminds us to greet the wonder of the close of day and remember fleeting things. How do we balance the spiritual life with the material life? How do we balance our lives against the immensity of nature? How do we align ourselves with the natural world? Tim Conroy will read the next poem.
Tree by Jane Hirschfield. It is foolish to let a young redwood grow next to a house. Even in this one lifetime, you will have to choose. That great calm being, this clutter of soup pots and books. Already, the first branch tips brush at the window. Softly, calmly, immensity taps at your life.
This next poem will be read by Mary Ruth Ragland. It's a Mary Oliver poem. She sets the tone of the poem with a terrific title. Listen and feel the shift in the poem after the symbols of the bread and wine.
The vast ocean begins just outside our church. The Eucharist by Mary Oliver. Something has happened to the bread and the wine. They have been blessed. What now? The body leans forward to receive the gift from the priest's hand. Then the chalice. There are something else now from what they were before this began. I want to see Jesus, maybe in the clouds or on the shore, just walking. Beautiful man, and clearly someone else besides. On the hard days, I ask myself if I ever will. Also, there are times my body whispers to me that I have.
Daniel Cross Turner will read the next poem.
Kerr's Ass by Patrick Kavanaugh. We borrowed the loan of Kerr's ass to go to Dundalk with butter. Brought him home the evening before the market, an exile that night in Mucker. We heeled up the cart before the door. We took the harness inside. The straw-stuffed straddle, the broken breeching with bits of bull wire tied. The winkers that had no choke band, the collar and the reins. In Ealing Broadway, London town, I name their several names. Until a world comes to life, mourning the silent bog, and the god of imagination waking in a mucker fog.
Kavanaugh uses language of the people to achieve the poem's rich sounds. He grounds the reader by naming places, and his last lines achieve a stunning transcendence, as if we were conceived in such a moment, the moment the fog clears and the ground of being appears. The next two poems were read by friends and family as we helped my brother Pat transition to a peaceful end next to a tidal river. Sometimes poems can say what we can't, provide comfort, offer perspective, and inspire. These are the poems that my brother loved and I adore. One constancy, one binding of our humanity is how we suffer loss and how we strive to ease the suffering of others. Poetry as an expression of love, grief, and even salvation. Hear these next poems for the loved ones you have lost. Knowing them made us who we are. I will let the words of the next few poems speak for themselves.
The Call by Ron Rash. That afternoon, as last light drained from the hospital window, he rose into bed and called not preacher, daughter, or wife, but for his two blackened tans, as if they might keep at bay what hovered in the shadows. At that moment, miles away, the hounds stirred, lifted their throats, and filled the mountain valley with what near neighbors swore were unearthly howls, ceased only when the old man's last breath left, and his dogs sprawled their bellies against the earth and whimpered. Excerpt from Strength of Fields by James Dickey. The moon lying on the brain, as on the excited sea, as on the strength of fields. Lord, let me shake with purpose. Wild hope can always spring from tended strength. Everything is in that and nothing but kindness. More kindness, dear Lord, of the renewing green. That is where it all has to start, with the simplest things. More kindness will do nothing less than save every sleeping one and night walking one of us. My life belongs to the world. I will do what I can.
To paraphrase Seamus Heaney, the Irish poet, imagination presses back against the sadness of the world. The next poem wrote itself after dinner with our friends, Chuck and Pam, Carrie and Bonifacio, where Chuck, who's an 80-year-old man, who's lived 10 lives. He's been a missionary in Africa. He's had malaria 8 times. He's built more habitat houses and houses in Haiti. He's just an incredible kind of old hippie. You just would love this guy. And his wife. And at dinner, after dinner, Chuck told me the story about his father. And I was so taken by the story, I ran home and wrote this poem. Sometimes you take snippets from the stories you hear, and they inspire something. And that's why we have to tell our stories to each other. It's important. Visitations. After the sheriff tracked you down in the cabin in the Great Smokies and said your father was gone, you took the winding drive to be alone and saw him waiting in the bend, surprised he would appear so soon. The old buck nodded to tell you what he could never say aloud. You never felt more like a part of him than when your mother died surrounded by outstretched hands. You spied the black snake a week later disappearing into the mimosa, and you didn't have to see where it went. It was enough that it moved silently to do things that a mother must do. And when your younger brother chose death, and your older brother died of living too hard, they appeared together above Damascus as you hiked in the snow and spotted 2 ponies running like brothers, the younger pretending to be slower but chasing the other. Each drew kindred eyes at you until they disappeared over the hill, leaving tracks to follow, knowing one day you will appear across a field and stare at someone who will rejoice at the heart of a wild creature. And Mary Ruth will read the next selection.
A Prayer by Max Ehrman. Let me do my work each day, and if the darkened hours of despair overcome me, may I not forget the strength that comforted me in the desolation of other times. May I still remember the bright hours that found me walking over the silent hills of my childhood, or dreaming on the margin of a quiet river when a light glowed within me. And I promised my early God to have courage amidst the tempest of the changing years. Spare me from bitterness and from the sharp passions of unguarded moments. May I not forget that poverty and riches are of the Spirit, though the world knows me not. May my thoughts and actions be such as shall keep me friendly with myself. Lift up my eyes from the earth, and let me not forget the uses of the stars. Forbid that I should judge others, lest I condemn myself. Let me not follow the clamor of the world, but walk calmly in my path. Give me a few friends who will love me for what I am, and keep ever burning before my vagrant steps the kindly light of hope. And though age and infirmity overtake me, and I come not within sight of the castle of my dreams, Teach me still to be thankful for life and for times old and memories that are good and sweet. And may the evening's twilight find me gentle still.
God is poetry. God is metaphor. God is creation, and for me, represents how we struggle to live our lives. Our struggle is written in poetry. Today we are reminded of what good rises from dirt, from tenderness, grapes, and love, from the revelation of families in the image of clothes hanging on a line, and how wind can remind the son of his father, of the feeling we get staring out windows looking over memory and sunsets, trees and clutter, miracles, ordinary language and faith, loss and kindness, wild creatures, and how the God of imagination beckons us to become makers of storied lives. I started my sermon with Dave Lucas reminding us that poetry is making. Lucas wrote, "Metaphorical truth through poetry became the way I could make sense of the world." And I add, it is the lens that focuses my faith. And my prayer for you is that poetry and faith will help sustain you like it has me. My brother Pat said, "You try to worship God by performing the singularly courageous and impossible favor of knowing yourself." It all congeals and moves and hurts in the remembering. This is why God loves poetry. This is why my concept of God is a poem. Poetry is bringing you yourself to the mystery and attempting to express it. My prayer for us is an excerpt from the poem In Jerusalem. Transfigured words sprout like grass from Isaiah's messenger mouth. If you don't believe, you won't believe. If you would, please join me in a version of the Lord's Prayer. O cosmic poet of all radiance, soften the ground of our being and write a space within us where your presence can abide. Fill us with your creativity so that we may be empowered to bear the verses of your message. Let each of our poems bear fruit in accordance with our desire. Endow us with the wisdom to produce and share what each being needs to grow and flourish. Untie the tangled threads of destiny that bind us as we release others from the entanglement of past mistakes. Do not be diverted from our true purpose, but illuminate the opportunities of the present moment. For you are the inspiration and the vision, the artist and fulfillment, as all are gathered and made into one poem again. And so it is. You join me, and we're going to have this collective poem that we're going to read together. Thank you. And then we're going to have a closing hymn. So please read this poem with gusto, because it's a great poem by the poet Ross Gay. Thank You by Ross Gay. If you find yourself half naked and barefoot in the frosty grass, hearing again the earth's great sonorous moan that says, you are the air of the now and gone, that says, all you love will turn to dust and will meet you there. Do not raise your fist. Do not raise your small voice against it, and do not take cover. Instead, curl your toes into the grass. Watch the cloud ascending from your lips. Walk through the garden's dormant splendor. Say only thank you, and thank you.
going to do a song I think a lot of you are going to be familiar with, and I hope that you'll sing along with us. Peace like a river, love like the ocean, and joy like a fountain. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like river in my soul. I've got peace like river, I've got peace like river, I've got peace like river in my soul. I've got love like the ocean, I've got love like the ocean, I've got love like the ocean in my soul. I've got love like the ocean, I've got love like the ocean in my soul. Got joy like fountain, got joy like fountain, got joy like fountain in my soul. I've got joy like fountain, got joy like fountain, got joy like fountain in my soul. And all together now, I've got peace, love, joy like river. I've got peace, love, joy like river. I've got peace, love, joy like river in my soul. I've got peace, love, joy like river. I've got peace, love, joy like river. I've got peace, love, joy like river in my soul.
I want to thank everybody who came out today. If y'all are interested in buying any of the books, part of the proceeds go to the Friends of the Library. And so it really helps their programming out. And also it helps a poet out too. Thank you all. Y'all were, let's hear it again.